Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Taarika Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Today, we're beginning our new podcast series, Career Choice, The Intelligent Way, a collaboration between Taarika Foundation and Mybraindesign. We're joined by two expert guests, Dr. Sweta Adatia and Dr. Leena Khanzode, who will guide us through the science behind our brains, the different brain types, and whole brain skill building to empower us youth to navigate our future with clarity and confidence. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. It's your host, Seerat here, and today we're starting a new series, Career Choice, The Intelligent Way. I'm super excited to begin because we'll explore the tools, trends, and truths to help us be aware about our career choices. We have two great experts with us, Dr. Sweta Adatia and Dr. Leena Khanzode. Dr. Sweta, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Seerat, and thank you, Dr. Leena, for co-chairing this as well. I joke and I say I'm a brain plumber. I fix broken brains. I'm a neurologist, but that's a very, very boring day job. And that's definitely not going to remain or not is not my career. I like when you say career, I rather would call it as a calling. So my calling was always talking to people. My calling was always innovating, creating something which can help and guide people. So I run a lab called Limitless Brain Lab, and all the research that we do in the lab is all about health, wealth, and happiness for all.
Yeah, I liked how you said it's a calling, not a career. Dr. Lena, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, wow, very impressive, Dr. Shweta, to share this platform with you. And I think it's the intention that's greater than the work they say. So you are sounds like you're a perfect example of that. So I am Dr. Leena Khanzode, a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I did my residency and fellowship in child psychiatry from Stanford University, and currently I'm clinical assistant professor there. Happy to get this opportunity to give back and train some of the trainees who are becoming child psychiatrists currently. Besides that, I have a private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I am also founder of a nonprofit called Taarika Foundation. The mission for Taarika is to create and support youth mental health. So we do this by various different ways. One of the ways is to use the digital way to disseminate the information about mental health and debunk some of the myths around the mental health kind of that people have, especially when it comes to youth. We also do in person because we are in this virtual world. So I am so used to now using the word in person or in real life events to teach families mindfulness, which is kind of a foundation to build resilience and give the taste of who we really are, kind of the being we are. So there's many things that we try to do through Tarika, and Seerat is one of our awesome youth ambassadors. So again, thank you for sharing this platform with me, Dr. Shweta.
Wonderful. I often joke, I ask people, I said, what is the meaning of the word doctor? Don't expect me to treat you, because the meaning of the word doctor is not to treat, it is dossier, which means to teach. So that is the foundation of what a medical practice or what a healthcare practitioner should be. So I think that is a great example of what you just said, that it is through teaching in real life that we will be able to make changes and have health for all and happiness for all. Thank you.
Yes, I'm very happy to be part of Taarika Foundation. So let's begin and ask Dr. Shweta, what's your story and what led you to research on how to connect neuroscience and career planning?
Wow, thank you for asking me that question. So, there are two kinds of marriages in India. There's love marriage. I come from India, so I relate there. A love marriage and arranged marriage. There are two kinds of careers, love career and arranged career. Mine was 100% a fully arranged career. got a lot of marks, didn't know what to do. My parents were both into medical fields. My dad was an anesthetist, mom was a pharmacist. They said, try medicine. So, with the pretext of trying medicine, but there was a condition. If I don't like, I step out. They agreed to that condition. And I go into the world of medicine, 5 years of MBBS, 1 year of internship, 1 year of pre medicine, 3 years of medicine, 1 year of pre neurology, 3 years of neurology, 2 years of stroke. It went on for 14 years. After you live with something for 14 years, you fall in love, right? So I fell in love with it. And finally, to learn about the brain was something which was absolutely mind blowing. Every single session that I was there with the neuroscience, every single lecture led me to think that who is behind the scenes building such a complex amazing brain, so it was a aha moment every single day of my life with the brain. And then obviously when you learn so much about the brain, and then still you have self doubt. That is the beauty of the brain also. Are you on the right path? So after about 14 years, I'm asking myself, am I really where I should be? Is it really my calling? Is it really my career path? And that's when my journey into understanding the self began. I started to do all the psychometric tools and gave 6 months. I started to explore what I can do best in the world, what can give me happiness, what can people be benefited from the talent and from the values and from the entire brain map that I have, or the brain treasure that I have. That led me to explore the avenues in which people decide their careers. So that is how the Future Ready Now, the book, also is part of my own discovery of my own career and validating, yes, neurology is the right choice for you. So that's how I came into neurology.
Yeah, I like how you described it as a love career and arranged career, and how yours transformed from an arranged one to a love one. So, what about you, Dr. Leena? What was your journey to becoming a child psychiatrist?
So my journey was really driven by a very deeply personal experience and kind of personal journey with my family member dealing with mental health issues. So my father had bipolar disorder, so that definitely kind of pushed me into higher level of curiosity about what this is, how do you treat it. So that definitely gave me the push to go into the field of medicine. And then during my rotation in psychiatry during medical school, besides being just curious and intrigued about bipolar disorder or mood disorders, I genuinely liked the whole kind of rotation and understanding of human mind and how there are ways to kind of work through our thinking and treating anxiety disorders and other types of psychological conditions. And so that definitely drove me into the field of psychiatry. And then as I was like starting to understand more about just general psychiatry, we started to understand some of these illnesses actually stem in early childhood. And so I went back to my grandma. I remember that very distinctly, and asked her, how was my dad like when he was a teenager? And she was like, yeah, he was kind of like a moody kid, and he would go through phases of feeling really happy, upbeat, and then feeling really like sad and isolated. And so it kind of became clearer to me that this was something he had like an onset, which is often the case during his adolescent years, which on one hand, I was like, wow, like that's really how it happens. And that same thing happened for my dad. But on the other hand, from the repercussions that we had as a family and his like parents, a lot of the kind of the difficulty that the family members went through this journey of not understanding that this was a mental illness, and they would call him, it's just his personality, it's just his nature, and they kind of kept kind of moving along with that. And so that was one of the impetus for me to like understand the power of recognizing things earlier and treating them earlier on. So that was the main reason I came into the field of child psychiatry, thinking like early intervention can be so powerful and so helpful. And had that happened for my dad, we would have had much more of a fun journey than a kind of a little bit of a turbulent journey, if you will. So, yeah, long answer, but that's what I have to share about my journey to becoming a child psychiatrist. And I absolutely love it. Couldn't have chosen another career.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never not have had anything other than being a neurologist. I think the hardware of the brain and the software of the mind, these two are just absolutely phenomenal to deal with, right?
Absolutely.
Dr. Lena, I love how you didn't want any other family to go through what you went, so you are helping so many other children. So let's deep dive right in. So my first question, why do students now need career guidance?
Students will always need, or students will should always get the right career guidance, because the choice, first of all, let us understand that the choice that we make, or the choices that we make, is done by the frontal part of the brain. We call it the frontal cortex, and that frontal cortex is still developing. There's much of the part of the frontal cortex which develops by the age of 23 or 24, when all your career choices are finished. So definitely in that age group, when you are 13, 14, 15, you need that guidance, you need that hand holding, because the limited amount of the exposure to the environment, may it be peers, may it be teachers, is all that you are exposed to as a child. So you will never be aware about the career consciousness, the expanded vast choices which are available. So hence it is very prudent that people should talk to the right kind of guidance person, or the right kind of counselor, because at least getting the awareness is the first step. The self discovery is sort of the second step, and then scientifically leading to what would be the calling. Because interests, are pretty flimsy. Neuroscientifically speaking, interests do not consolidate until the age of 30 or 31. Very few people right on have the right interests, and then they get into the careers, but it's often unlikely. So we cannot depend or rely on interest. We cannot rely only on the peer influence. We cannot rely on only the limited knowledge with that limited frontal lobe that the young kids have. And that's why career guidance is of importance. And somewhere when you get to the right calling, you never feel that you're working every single day, right? For example, for me, any kind of this is a brain romance, so every dialogue that I have, every research paper that comes out, everything that comes out is just sheer fun. The moment that happens, then you're not working towards anything, you're just enjoying.
Okay, so career, it's not just when you're working for money, you enjoy it. And I also liked how you said that you're asking like 13-year-olds to decide their life plan, but their prefrontal cortex isn't even like fully
Yeah,
developed.
can they even decide between a pizza and a burger or the type of the pizza?
Exactly.
So that's why guidance is necessary. Guidance must be taken. There should be a scientific method in which we understand how do we get to our calling. Yes, choices may unfold later on, which is all right. You start somewhere, you start to explore, and then you get to somewhere. So eventually everybody gets to wherever it is. That's the ikigai principle, right?
So let's see if like, do you see any students stressed about their career path in your practice,
Oh,
Doctor?
yes. I think more than students, at least in the part of the world that I live in, parents are more stressed. The entire Southeast Asia, the parents are more worried about what to do with the kids, what kind of career to take. So, yes, when there are so many choices, I think we live in a world where there are 50 different types of subjects to choose from. I mean, I don't know, Dr. Leena, in your time, but in my time, it was very simple and easy. If you get a lot of marks, you take science. If you don't study, you take commerce. Life is sorted. There is no third option which was there. Now with the number of subjects, with the curriculum types, with the type of the entire way in which things are chosen, things are there, anybody can be confused, right? Anybody can be stressed about it. So yes, because of the plenty of choices, and forget even the current choices, the beautiful thing about career is I don't have to think today what is the demand supply. I really have to stretch and pull 10 years down the line. What is it going to be like? 15 years down the line, there is going to be people like memory curators. There's going to be bionic limb manufacturers, which are not there right now. But that is how we have to think when we think of choice for a career. So it's very difficult for the youngsters to stretch their choices, and hence the right type of help is required.
Yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned there's so many choices. Like even like our high school course list and AP's list, there's way too many to choose from. So
Absolutely.
Totally. The world has changed so much. And so I'll share my like 2 cents in terms of
Mhm.
the experience I have in this Western part of the world. So what I have seen is maybe about 5 years or a decade ago, parents were much, much, much more worried about like what my child is going to do and how do we kind of pick the right career for them. And it's almost reversed in this Bay Area culture that we talk about, like where we have all these very elite people from the world who are doing their careers and become role models for their children. So the parents actually are not doing this obviously intentionally, but the kids internalize that and feel like, oh, if my dad is a CFO, CEO, or whatever, CTO of a one of the renowned like technology companies, I have to do better than them, right? And so what I see is that the kids are feeling a lot of pressure from the environment. I think the parents are not like, they've understood that that level of pressure is causing mental health and stress kind of issues. So they have backed off, but I see the kids putting a lot of pressure on themselves. And the talk amongst the peers and them is always about what difficult courses to take, what can my application show that I'm like the best of the best so I can land into one of the Ivy League kind of colleges and then land into the career that can be fulfilling from financial as well as also like the pressure of that brand name and how I can shine and prove myself. So unfortunately, while there is some good aspects to this kind of thinking, I see the bad side of it, which is heartbreaking because in that process of proving themselves, they are really confused. They are trying to go into careers that may not be the right careers for them, but they are just trying to go kind of, I sometimes say it's like a herd mentality, like, okay, just follow the herd. Like, okay, everybody is saying, oh, you become a software engineer or you go into computer science and become this technology kind of career person and you can come out with flying colors and get the job and make a really awesome salary off the bat and then they are like, oh, this is really not for me, right? Later on, like you said, I mean, their brain is developing and there is such an influence from the environment and the peers, and this world of social media doesn't help for them to constantly get bombarded with where people are, what they are doing, and what are some of the glamour of some of the careers, if you will. And so I see a lot of stress because of that. And it is mind-boggling to me that getting to the next level and figuring that out already when you're just 18 is not fair. Like, you don't have to get it figured out.
Yeah,
It's
true.
okay
It's
if
not
you
fair,
follow your
actually.
passion. Yeah.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, like around me in my school and schools around. If you're not like in the hardest class, then automatically you don't care about your life and your life's
Yeah.
that's what it's taken for. So we're going to exploring how you use neuroscience to connect career planning. So let's begin with the very basics and ask, what is neuroscience?
That is very easy. So, learning about the brain essentially means neuroscience, but neuroscience is also about understanding the physiology much more than the brain, the connection, the mind brain body connection. When the brain fires, what is happening into your entire physiology. It also includes the autonomic nervous system, the peripheral nervous system. So, it's essentially how the entire unit of us with our brain and with all the nerves that we have operates. So, that is essentially neuroscience. And it also includes, we should not forget Dr. Leena's mind as well. It does include the mind behind the scene.
So when you mention physiology, do you mean like the actual neurons in the brain or how what your brain does
Yes,
affects the rest of the body?
absolutely. So when your nerves are firing, when your neurons or the brain cells are firing, there is a circuit which is also down within. Your hand is moving, your leg is moving. That circuit is also part of the neuroscience. So it's essentially movement, locomotion, thinking, feeling, everything is pretty much neuroscience.
I couldn't have
So
described it any better in a simpler way than Dr. Shweta did. So perfect.
yeah, I loved your really simple definition. Why is neuroscience generally important?
Okay, let me ask you a question. You have a nice little computer with you, and I will take away the CPU and I'll say, go use the computer. Would you be able to use the computer
No.
without the CPU? No. So the CPU, that's the brain. That's the central processing unit of the human. So that is why brain is everything, or brain, or for that matter, the nervous system that we talked about. That is the key fundamental instrument from which, and I often tell my patients this example as well. Mozart is singing. Mozart is an amazing musician and he's playing through the radio. Now the radio is not tuned well, and then we say Mozart is not singing well. The cosmic consciousness, the cosmos, which is Mozart, is playing through the radio of your mind and brain. So it's all about fine tuning that to listen to Mozart, to get to the cosmic consciousness and the power that you can manifest through the instrument of brain and mind.
Yeah, so one question just popped in my mind. So then what's the difference between neuroscience and psychology?
That Dr. Leena will answer.
Yeah. So I will try to take a stab at this by trying to understand this more simply. Like Dr. Shweta was saying, our brain is the CPU. That's essentially the main controlling unit of entire body. But interestingly, there are parts to our brain that we understand that play different roles. And there is an emotional brain, and then there is a logical brain, right? And so the emotional brain is we consider as a primitive kind of reptilian or old time brain. So as human beings, many, many millions of years ago, we lived in caves, and that's kind of how we started our journey of life. And so we were surrounded by danger and uncertainty all the time. So that definitely shaped how our brain kind of started to develop essentially. And so this primitive brain or emotional brain started to get even more activated in order to be safe, in order to survive. And the function of the primitive brain became to be ready to perceive threats and be ready to respond to threats. So it's kind of like that fight, flight, freeze response that we talk about right now, right? Like that we all, whether or not it's a real threat or a perceived threat, that's what our emotional brain tells us to do, like fight or flight or freeze. And so that's kind of one way to understand that there is this another very significant part of our brain that deals with thoughts and feelings and helps us choose the behaviors, and also has certain emotions that stem naturally, like anxiety, fear, nervousness. All these are just basic primitive primary emotions, happiness, sadness. So interestingly enough, in times of extreme stress, our emotional brain, being the powerful first kind of built brain, or that part of the brain being stronger, hijacks our logical brain in intense times of stress and challenging situations. And we go with responding based on our emotional state in that moment, whether it is fear, whether it is anger, whether it is frustration, whatever is happening based on the situation around us. And that's what drives our behaviors and are essentially how we behave and function in the world. And that's like the tip of the iceberg. That's what we see, right? And obviously, certain behaviors are appreciated and more welcome, and certain are not. And when we are going out of the norm of expected behaviors, that's when you're kind of like, oh, this is deviant, this is abnormal, this is not right. And that's kind of one way to understand there is some basic psychology that comes from the emotional brain, and then the deviance from that path, if we have lack of that regulation of emotional brain and that right balance of communication between our emotional and logical brain, that kind of leads to psychological issues. And that's how psychology comes into the play, because ultimately how we manifest the choice we are making is what's the behavior you're seeing, and that's how we are understood and perceived by the next person. And so it becomes really important to work on that other part of the brain as well.
Yeah, I liked it. So psychology is focusing more on the emotional brain and why we let the emotional brain overpower the rest of our brain.
Oh, absolutely, because it is what you see, what you perceive is the behavior, right? And that is foundational or fundamental first response. But then behind the scenes, there is this emotional limbic brain and then the rational frontal cortex. There's always a nice little dialogue going on between the two, and whichever is developed, sort of better developed. So if your frontal cortex is well developed, then you have emotionally regulated system. You understand, discriminate what is good and bad for you. You understand the past and the future. Thing about the brain is very interesting. Brain is the laziest organ. It does not like to work. It is always happy being in the comfort zone. 25% of oxygen it takes, and then happy, does not want to do any work. It just wants to keep you in a comfort zone, protected, and it behaves like the limbic system or the emotional system is like the little watchdog. It is watching, all the time watching. Even if there is no threat, also real threat, also it creates the threat. What is anxiety? Anxiety is just, or fear is just false expectation which is appearing real, fear. There's nothing there, but your brain will just create it just for the sake of protection. So then the frontal cortex, if it's well developed, which is where we as neurologists come in, saying that, hey, develop the frontal cortex also, and the psychologists make them, give them strategies or anchor or a lot of stuff of talking about it, that how to subdue this emotional system and how to work along together so that the best versions of ourselves is not just perceived, but is also there.
Yeah, I liked how you showed what the different parts of the brain does, and that fear is false expectations appear.
Expectation appearing real. Yes.
I like that. So, how does the way our brain thinks impact which career is best for us? Because that's what my brain design focuses a lot on.
Yeah. So my brain design was actually built for me because I was confused. I wanted to know what I will do better. I'm not sure if after 14 years neurology is right for me. And I was very sure that I'm not a typical doctor. I would not like to sit in a cabin and I would not just like to see the patient. Neither I was very clear that pure research is not for me. I love to travel. I love to meet a lot of people. I was very creative. So then how do you combine these? And that is where all these self-discovery tools, I started to go through it. And I still remember whatever fellowship money I had, I blew thousands of dollars only doing one after the other assessments. And I started to write to a lot of top career experts from Australia, from Japan, because I wanted to know what can they tell me, what I can do better. And then one of the tools, which is called Neatling Brain Inventory, when I did that with the fundamental of whole brain thinking, I loved it. And I started to ping Dr. Neatling's office. I want to meet Dr. Neatling. And he used to be there in Philadelphia. This is a many years back story. Currently is in South Africa. And I wouldn't get the appointment because somewhere I felt that whatever the tool that I did sort of accurately described who I am, what I can do better, what I can contribute. My brain's preferences were sort of very well mapped. I was having that inkling. So I start to write. 6 months I don't get a response, and then finally 6 months later I get to go meet him, and I bring all those 70, 80 tools that I had done and all the things what I did, and I said, look, I love this idea that you can scientifically understand your brain's preferences and then start doing something where there is a likelihood of you liking it. There's a likelihood that you will feel contented, you will feel fulfilled. And although a half an hour was given to me, finally me and Dr. Neatling landed up talking for 4 to 5 hours. He went through all the records that I had. And at that time, Dr. Neatling also got a Guinness Book of World Record for writing a book in 4 minutes. So he was one of those creativity stalwarts, amazing person. And I think over the cup of 3 or 4 coffee, we discussed this entire thing, and he said, I think you like to design something which will help the students to understand their career better. And I said, yes, this whole brain thinking science is amazing. Why don't I do a lot of interviews? We talk to students, we talk to parents, we understand what goes into the recipe of forming a career. Is it just values? Is it the peer pressure? Is it the teacher's influence? Is it interest? Is it the brain type? Is it the psychology? What is going on? And that's when my research for the book started, and we started to interview a lot of people. We started to build a brain tool, the preference, which I know that this is how my brain is hardwired, because by the age of 13 or 14, those preferences sort of are built. Either it is from the right brain, it's left. I mean, there's a lot of pop neuroscience around it also. I'm a right brain, left brain. Well, that is all pop, but there is some truth into it, saying that, the brain has a certain dominant preferences. If you are aware about those dominant preferences, your behavior is very likely to be predicted. So, for example, upper brain is all about vision, tomorrow, future, look forwards, take risks, while lower brain is more about people, empathy, concern, support, kindness. So automatically you know that people with upper brains are more likely to get into leadership positions, are more likely to be entrepreneurs, more likely to be researchers, while the lower brains are more likely to be consulting, teaching, in HR. So this is the way in which we design the entire My Brain Design concept, that once you get your preference assessed, and then you add all these factors, your finances, your interests, your choices, your parents, your genetic factors, and then you come out with something which is a plausible explanation of where it is likely that you will like it. So that is what My Brain Design is all about.
Yeah, your answer touched upon one of my next few questions about the key factors that play a role. And so right now you mentioned one about genetic factors, and I'm a little confused. How do genetic factors play a role?
Both genetic and epigenetics. Epigenetics is all about the environment, right? I mean, my own example, all in my house I saw was discussion of medicine. There was nothing else but medicine. There was no question of any finance being discussed or accounts being discussed or technology being discussed. So all that I would continuously hear subconsciously is all going to be medicine. Now, genetically also, there are certain people who have that drive, that motivation. And, we say loose terms, oh, he's like dad, he's like mom. Very likely, if mom is a teacher, he shows all the behavioral nuances of a teacher. So there is some truth to the genetic component also being passed on into the generation, but not entirely true, because epigenetics also plays a role. So it's nature, nurture, mix of everything, and then the early childhood, what you get exposed to, and then the type of the schooling that you do, and then the interest that you build, and then the extracurricular activities that you have. So it's really complex when it comes to what drives a particular career. However, because it's so mad, you should have some method in the madness, right? So that some method in the madness is what Future Ready Now brings, is what My Brain Design brings. It's the first self discovery, then go on to the next level of expansion of your career consciousness, go into building the skills that you are meant for, what we call flow and grow, build your strengths, overcome your weaknesses. Go ahead and look at people who have done that, because mirror neurons play a very important role. Having an inspirational figure, watching them done what they have done, you building those neurons, because you are looking up to them, and then consistently practicing, committing to that building of the brain's pathways, and then success. So it's a method.
Yeah, I really love that. I was also going to add the point about nature versus nurture. That's what you reminded me of. So, how does neuroscience help us choose a career path? Like you mentioned on this a little earlier, but what are the things that you look for in the brain when you're deciding?
We look for this typing, or the way in which the brain is wired, right? So for example, let me give a very loose example. Mostly the speech is coming from the left side of the brain. Mostly the way in which organization happens, linear things happen, the way you decipher a certain data, the way you analyze is coming from the left side, while right is a little bit more towards visuospatial orientation, more towards understanding the space, more towards music, a little bit more towards adventure, risks taking, or risk seeking behavior. So once you know what is your dominant part of the brain, your behavior sort of stems from it. So the entire idea is, yes, I'm just bringing into my conscious awareness that this is how I'm likely to think, this is how I'm likely to behave. The moment I know that, then I know that if I don't like to sit in a cabin, which means I'm not very left oriented, I don't just like the data, I don't like the analysis, I have a creative part to it, I turn my career around and say, hey, now this is what I'm going to do. So that is exactly what I did. When I knew this, I just threw up in LinkedIn saying that call me for any kind of a neurology job, but it should not be within the room. It should not be confined to the four walls. And then my friends were laughing and said, there's no such job such as that. I said, no problem, let's throw it out. If it is there, it will come back. And I did get a job which was affiliated to United Nations, working in a remote place in Congo in Central Africa, where I was doing community neurology. So actually, I would be going in the communities and then looking after the patients. And it was a French speaking job. I didn't know French, but then within that 1.5 months, I had to learn French. Now, because my brain was so creative, I wanted to get out there. It sort of motivated me to do that. And in a month and a half, I learned very quickly by seeing all the French movies. And that's
It's
how I
awesome.
continued the job. So this is what drives the brain. You literally steer your career towards what you are liking.
Such an amazing story. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. You have definitely proven that the neuroscience does shape you and help you along the way if you are driven by a career or the type of career you want to go into.
You just have to be committed to it. You don't give up. But I mean, obviously there would be financial upheavals. I mean, my friends told me so many times, you are never going to earn, like there's always an expectation, there's conformity. The society wants you to behave in a certain way, your family wants you to behave in a certain way. There would be challenges, but then finally, end of the day, bearing all the material this of it. Are you happy inside? What are we all searching for? End of the day, we are all wanting to be happy, wanting to be contented, wanting to be fulfilled. And that is where the shaping of the brain, the your understanding, behavioral nuances, persistence, commitment, all this comes into play. And having that mindset, I think, let's bring your mind in, because mind is also such a powerful thing,
Absolutely,
right?
it's a
Getting that
powerful thing.
mindset in is also extremely important. People just give up too soon, or they just, accept the defeat. And then I was very committed. And then after many, many years, also, suddenly one fine day, I thought that, look, I want to work at scale. I want many, many more people to be benefited by the work, but I am not taught that skill. In my medical school, there's nothing being taught in terms of how business happens or how social enterprise runs, or nothing at all. And at the age of 37, I thought I'll do an MBA, and I wanted to do it from the top universities. And then all my friends said, you're too old. In fact, the MBA counselors, whoever I met, they all said, no, you're too old. I said, we doctors but graduated at a old age. It's not our fault. It's just the medical school. But everybody discouraged. And then I went and gave my GMAT exam. Now, I left maths many, many, many years back, but I was very committed. I failed once, twice, thrice, four times, five times, six times, seven times, eight times. I don't get a score. My parents said, now it's been 2 years. You will not be able to do it. I said, one last try. Ninth time, I get a good score. And then I applied to all the universities, and I was waitlisted at MIT Sloan. I got into Cambridge. Finally, Cambridge was with scholarship, and I did an MBA in finance. So I left all my this and finally, landed up having the major in finance from Cambridge. It was all because I was very determined that, look, this is how my brain works, and I know I can make it happen. It's a matter of time. So if everybody understands that bent, that psychological bent, or that what you are liking, and they start to work towards it, I'm sure for every single person, such careers unfold. So when we interview people, when we have a lot of accountants and then the technology experts and the career people, because with our book we had to do a lot of interviews, so I would just call them up saying that, are you satisfied, are you happy? It's not about how much money you're making, but are you contented? And a lot of people who were doing very left brain tasks, very monotonous, very organization based, very data centric, very analytical tasks, if they had the right brain, they would definitely tell me that, yes, we're making a lot of money, but the life sucks, we're not happy about it. So that is what I wanted to change. That is what I wanted to sort of educate people about, that what if you can have the best of both the worlds? You start with the self discovery, you have the self growth, you understand what is the process, and give a little bit of a scientific bent to it, then it can happen.
Yeah, so you mentioned combining like what you want, what the world needs, and how you can actually make money, have a job
That's
that
right.
you love. Yeah, and in one of your
Hmm.
earlier responses, you mentioned about how like your brain type affects your career. So you said that which brain side is dominant, like will show what your preferences are and will can predict your behaviors, and that can predict how you act and what career is best based on like how you approach problems and tasks.
That's right. That's right. In fact, Dr. Herman has done a lot of work in this space as well. The Herman Brain Dominance Inventory, 90%, up to 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are also using this fundamental of whole brain thinking into their daily customer centric behavior, team building, understanding the processes of the company, because this is sort of a science which we know it for ages long. It was way back in 80s when Dr. Sperry was treating people with epilepsy, that we started to know the importance of corpus callosum, how the two brains are talking to each other, how the intermanual conflict, which means the two hands, how the hands were actually not fighting, but it was the brains which were separated out or cut out. So this was sort of a science which was buried in quite many years back, and it was all these psychologists, Jacqueline Wander and people like Dr. Herman, who brought it out. So it has been there with us for quite a while, but using it a way to sort of add all the elements to that, and then very confidently making the choice. I think life is all about a little bit of validation as well, right? Today, if I tell you, see, that you're going to do the best of law, and then you would definitely have a self doubt. Oh, is law for me? Is this for me? And then if I tell you that, look, this is the type of the brain that you have, you're going to be very analytical, you're going to be very good in debate, you're very sharp, you're going to take this thing and build it in a way that has to be presented well, then you'll understand the logic behind it. The moment you'll understand the logic, you'll get convinced, and then your commitment will improve. So it's all about making people understand that, look, let's have a scientific view at it.
Yeah, this raised
Yeah.
one more question in my mind. So most of this is based on how your brain thinks, but as you're growing and as you're between like 1 to like 18, your brain is like changing. Like when I was a kid, I was more logical, but now I think more like critically. So in that case, when your brain changes, then how does that change the like career path? Like, do you take the test again, or?
Brilliant question. Very nice question. So until the age of 13, this is still forming. So, but after the age of 13, roughly, this sort of consolidates into a hardwired thing. But preferences remain hardwired, but skills are all open. So you can build any kind of skills that you want. The skill is like a under the sky. It's all open for you. But the preferences, and when you have a preference and a skill which matches together with your interest, with all the environmental factors which are conducive, that becomes sort of the super success formula for that career.
Okay, so it's the
Now,
preferences,
let me
not.
give example of Dr. Leena. Environmentally, there was this thing which was there had to be the what is the reason, the root cause why her father could have had bipolar. So that was all the relation of the environment, right? And then there was a real problem in the family. So she was already exposed to that real problem. The environment was conducive, and then she knew that she had this analytical bent of mind. So, and she also understood that you have to fix things from the root, not that you become old and then the problem has to be fixed. And that's what child psychiatry came to her as a logical choice. And that is how she is loving that as well, because it was seemingly just a random or just an event which led her to do that. But there were so many series of events which are subconsciously also driving that choice forwards.
Yep, absolutely. You put it really well.
Yeah, I understand now. So, how can we find a career in the times of AI? Because the world is changing, we're changing fast, and there's so much more technology now. So, how we actually get a job with AI?
We just will have to learn AI. So that there's no other choice. AI is amazing. I use AI in pretty much all the day tasks. I don't know how much, Dr. Lina, but in my life, AI is making all the notes. It's doing all the task of research, etc. and all. So AI is powerful. AI is giving us the leverage of time, which was always the manual tasks are getting so simple. It is taking away all the redundantness of the tasks that we had to perform. So AI is amazing, it's great. As we move forwards, generative AI and all the generations of AI which is going to come, I think we should welcome with a big heart. We should not think that it's going to take the jobs away. People who will not learn AI and embrace AI are the ones who will lose the jobs. So it is not about AI taking away the jobs at all.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think if we talk about 4 decades ago or whatever, when the first time the computer was in the world and the whole like this, oh, you can use this device now to help you type and communicate and all that. People were threatened by that and felt like, oh my gosh, no, this will not be the same. But then see how it has actually helped us come such a long way and made our lives easier. The only, I guess, maybe slight reservation I have with AI, and I think being in the field I am, where it matters to be truly be yourself and have that relationship with the patient to do the work effectively, even though they are like all these like talks about AI avatars, and you can actually create one of yours and they can kind of start seeing your patient. I'm not sure it's going to get so sophisticated to a level where it's going to really represent me as a me, right? Like, and that warmth and the touch of a human mind and relationship we create with the patient by just being there, whether it is through just our body language, our tone and our voice, and sometimes the touch, right? I mean, all of that, I don't think can be really created or replicated through an AI avatar. So that's where I find some solace. Again, hard to imagine how technology could beat some of that, but that's where I think we need not worry, because as human beings, we are wired to have that connection. The release of oxytocin, serotonin, all these great hormones that bring us joy and happiness will only come from a real person, is how we are wired. So hopefully that will keep us grounded and still be connected. Because one of the worries I have is like we are definitely seeing a lot of benefit from social media. We are connected with like my school friends, high school friends who I never thought I will be reconnected to. But is that same as meeting my person for a cup of coffee? Not really, right? Like even though I'm on the surface connected, I'm somewhat disconnected with them as well. So the power of human mind and connection that we seek that thrives us is always still going to be through us. And the AI could help us a little bit with the mundane and the other type of work, but hopefully it's not going to take us from our connections and being the beings we are, and the joy and happiness and satisfaction we derive from human interaction.
No, absolutely. I completely agree that, in fact, when AI is going to give a lot of time to us, that would be the time when we should reconnect with ourselves. That is the time when we should can reconnect with our tribe. That is the time when we should spend in self-discovery, in consciousness. So I think a couple of decades when AI take this task, I strongly feel that it would be better for the human race, because we will be going deeper within, and we will be connected with all the evolutionary parameters that, as you rightly mentioned, touch, empathy, concern, kindness. This is the fundamental of each and every human existence. All fundamentally are seeking the same happiness that is there. We are conscious or we are unconscious about it, we are subconscious about it, but it's the same demand which every single human being and human brain has.
Yeah, Leena, Auntie, I really liked your point where you mentioned that human connection is really important, and I really agree with that. And then Dr. Sweta, I liked in one of yours that you mentioned that AI is here to take away the mundane tasks, and if you can't work with AI, then you're not going to get a job. But people who view AI as an opportunity, they will actually be able to thrive in this world.
And the interesting thing, Seerat, what is going to happen is any technology will definitely have its own concerns and problems. So somebody will be required to fix it. Somebody will be required to upgrade it. Somebody will be required to manage it. So there will be people enough who will be doing that tasks. And I often give a very silly example, but a very strong example of, let's say, the flight that we sit in. The plane is flying. 99% of the tasks are automatic in the plane. But you and me fly a pilotless plane? We would rather not. So the pilot is just there, everything is being happening by the machine, but the pilot gives that security, that warmth, that comfort, that yes, we are being led and in the safe hands. The same way the doctor, whatever profession you call it, that human touch, that human connection is never going anywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree, even for like self-driving cars.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be doctorless hospitals for sure. There
Exactly.
can be some little ATMs. Oh, I got a little cold and flu. I'll get some ATM dispensing medications, OTCs, but not really the true comfort and the touch of a doctor. And that thing is never going anywhere. For that matter, for any profession, may it be legal, may it be medicine, it really does not matter.
Yes,
Agreed.
I agree. Knowing that there's a human behind it makes it really reassuring. So that concludes our podcast for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Leena and Dr. Sweta, for your time. I learned so much and I really enjoyed talking with you. I hope our audience learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to our next episode.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Seerat, for
much.
inviting. Thank you, Dr. Leena.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta. Again, super fortunate to have this opportunity to share this platform. And I also learned a lot. So, really, again, excited to have you do a lot more education for us in the next few episodes. Thank you.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Taarika Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every Friday, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening.